Hey guys, this is Alan with Devil May Play, and we are here introducing our inaugural episode that's going to be up on Psychotrip's channel. So Psychotrip, why don't you say hello?
Hey guys, Trip here, and yeah, just like what Lark says, if you guys don't know, I always call him Lark because that was his YouTube name. So he's just gonna have to deal with that. But yeah, so this is Devil May Play. You may have seen it, you may have heard of it. I talk about it all the time on the YouTube channel, but we decided to bring it here. So you guys are gonna be hearing a lot more of us being uncut, uncensored, and without a script. So hopefully nobody dies in the process, but you know, you never know.
That's true. Yeah, let's get started. What's the topic of this episode?
It's Wonder Woman.
Which, for any of our listeners that have listened to us for a while, they know our feelings on DC, and they're not, let's say, overwhelmingly positive feelings for the DC EU. Many other
fuck
people
DC,
online.
Fuck WB, fuck their movies between, let's say, the third Batman movie and Suicide Squad. Because Wonder Woman was fucking amazing. I have never been happier about being wrong. I was so wrong, and I am so fucking happy about it.
But were you wrong? Because there was nothing in the trailers that made me think it was going to be a shit show other than the fact that it was a DC film. Like, the trailers all their trailers look okay, right? And then the film comes out and the plot's a mess and the characters are usually not done well. And it was just that finally we got a director and a writer. I think there were multiple writers, but we at least got a director who understood the character. And when I saw the film, I know you're in this phase because you saw it, last night? I think.
Yeah.
When I first saw it, it took me like 2 days to really wrap my head around. I just liked a DC EU film. And it wasn't that I was trying to find things to dislike about it. It was more just like this sense of relief. Like, so this is what it feels like to like one of these films. It's like, wow.
So this is what it feels like when a DC movie is good. Not DC trying to be something else, not DC doing DC but poorly, but this is what it feels like when DC, being DC, makes a good movie. That's what Wonder Woman is.
Okay. So I'm gonna we could say so many things about it. It's like we have to kind of rein in our thoughts, right? Let me put it like this. There were two scenes in the film especially that sold the character of Wonder Woman to me. And I want to say before I explain these scenes that I was not a Wonder Woman fan going into this, not because of anything other than character, not because of the character necessarily, but because of the superpowers, like the
because you're
lasso
a fucking
truth.
Sexist.
That's exactly why. No, it's because I just thought her superpowers were like an invisible jet, which I'm just like, what? And then a lasso of truth. I'm just like, I feel like I always like would say, like, I felt like the writers of Wonder Woman just made random shit up and were like, oh yeah, give her a lasso. It's a lasso of truth.
Well, you know why the lasso is a thing, right?
Why is that? And
by the way, just wanted to say they sell that fucking lasso. They sell the lasso in that movie.
Oh, in the movie,
absolutely. I thought it was awesome. But I've read and heard from many, many different sources, and don't quote me on this, but this is just something I've heard throughout the years, that Wonder Woman was made by somebody who was kind of a bondage fetishist.
That could very well be it. I know he's polyamorous. The writer was.
Because all of the original, like the really, really, really old school Wonder Woman comics, you can really see it in them. You can really see it.
Interesting.
But anyway, as you were saying.
Okay, well, there were two scenes that sold it for me. I just meant to say that it took me from somebody that didn't really enjoy the character to like being sold on all the things that I thought were corny about the character, like the whip. And like you said, the whip comes in handy several times in this movie. But the two scenes, and this is spoilers from here on out, obviously. The two scenes, the first one was, if you remember, when they're going to the front and she's walking past all the wounded people and she sees the horses in the mud and she's like, they're doing it wrong or something. I can go help them. And we're like, no, Diana, no, we don't. We have to keep moving. You can't help everybody. Then she sees like the wounded people. I can help. No, like you see this realization. It's this character change where she realizes she's brought up in this like really utopian society, right? They They don't really have any pain. They train a lot, but she has this belief that she just has to help whoever she sees, right? And then she gets in the real world and it's like, wow, I can't help everybody. That's the first realization she comes to.
But you know what I really liked about that? And it was a running theme throughout the film. What I really liked about that is that a lot of movies do stuff similar with that, where you have like an optimist and somebody who's a pessimist. Neither of them is a bad person, but they look at things differently and they're trying to approach things differently. The mistake I feel most films make is at the end of the day, they say one side is right. And what I respected about Wonder Woman is we got to see a scene where she said, okay, I understand that. I understand that you're saying I can't help everybody, but fuck that shit. I'm going to do something totally crazy and insane and it's going to work and it's going to save hundreds of people. But at the same time, later on in the movie, you see another example where, no, he's actually right. Sometimes you do just have to understand the complexities of the world and that things aren't always as black and white as they seem. So I really like that sort of nuance. And it kind of instills the sense that you can maintain this heroic optimism, but still be realistic, and I feel like that's something you don't see in a lot of movies.
It's a tough balance, and it's funny because
exactly
one of the scenes you just mentioned was the second scene that was my favorite scene, which was the trenches, her running across the battlefield, where, like you said, they kept telling her, they're giving her the cynical worldview. You can't help everybody, and she said, "No, I'm going to help these people. I feel like I can do this. I'm going to do this." And we got probably one of the best superhero action scenes of the past decade for sure.
Literally, like I wouldn't say it's objectively the best action scene, period, full stop, but it was not since
a great character
this goes for the
moment.
This goes for the whole movie, by
Right.
the way, and this is going to be something that I'm going to keep coming back to. This movie allows a hero to be a hero without sacrificing character development and relatability. This is something that I've waited to see with Superman, for example.
Yes.
Where you don't need to make him cynical or brooding. He can be a hero. He can be somebody that
he can be sincere. You should look
He can be someone that you look up to and see and say that is the prime example of humanity, even though he's not technically human.
We're getting into what I think this is the window of opportunity for DC. First of all, I want to say Patty Jenkins specifically addressed the fact that a lot of films and art in general, there's like a tongue-in-cheek, like wink wink nature to it. Like sincerity is not cool anymore. You can't have a sincere superhero. It's got to be like the cynical, like whatever worldview. And this character, besides the fact that I really wish the DCEU had started with this film because
Jesus
they did it right.
Christ, yes.
This is exactly what Superman could have and should have been. And instead we got what we got. And now the fact that Wonder Woman came out and critics love it just goes to show you can do sincerity with superhero films. And more importantly, you just touched on what I think distinguishes DC's superheroes from Marvel's, which is Marvel's superheroes are like us. They're flawed, right? They're just like us. They have to overcome their own flaws, and that's what makes them relatable, and that's what gives them the arcs. DC superheroes, maybe with the exception of Batman and a few others, are better than us, right? Definitely Wonder Woman, definitely Superman, maybe to an extent Batman.
They're what we strive to be.
Right.
And it's incredibly difficult to portray a character like that without making them seem too perfect, without making them seem boring. A lot of people have been comparing this movie to the Captain America movies.
Oh, absolutely.
And even though it's in no way anything like the first Captain America movie in terms of the arc and everything, like a lot of people, you would think it would be like, oh, it's DC's version of Captain America. It's not. It's a very different movie. But the reason why I'm comparing them is that not since the Captain America movies, especially the first two, have I felt like a hero was a hero. And that doesn't mean I don't like the other Marvel movies. I love the Marvel movies. I love Iron Man. I love Spider-Man. I love all of them. But Captain America, I think, is Marvel's best attempt at doing what Wonder Woman did, showing a hero just be a fucking hero and still be somebody that we can look to and relate to. And that's the sense that I got from this movie. And honestly, I think it may have done it a little better because just like you said, they weren't afraid to be sincere, to not be cynical and tongue-in-cheek about everything. And I mean, if you've seen the show, you know we're both kind of cynical and tongue-in-cheek about a lot of things. Yeah. But it was so refreshing. Even when it comes down to that hokey theme song of hers, they didn't pull any punches on that shit. They didn't have it playing in the background and the character say, "Oh, that's silly" or whatever. No, they played that song a lot in that movie, and you felt it. You actually kind of got into it and bought it, and that's what I keep coming back to with this movie. I bought this movie. I bought what this movie was selling me, and I loved it.
Well, let's just say like this. Well, this is the first thought I had was this. Wow, I'm really impressed with this film. Later on, I was thinking, shit, I'm almost upset that the movie's so good because now it's like, do I have to give DC another chance? Because we were both ready to write them off. We were both ready to like, you know what? There's no hope for this series. Like they just don't understand it. Like our biggest problems. What were our biggest problems? Characters, tone, and plot. All three they knocked out of the fucking park, with the maybe exception of plot, yes. But definitely the tone and the character. And the characters especially were what was failing for me. Superman has not worked in either Man of Steel or Batman v Superman, in my opinion. We both agree on that. And Wonder Woman comes out and it just blows the expectation, blows the lid wide open, and it almost highlights. My friend was one of my friends that runs a website called Finnacle. I do some articles for them. He and we saw the movie. We were talking for like an hour and a half after the film. And he was like, not only was this film really good, it was about something. Like there was like a real emotional core to the film. And that's something that Marvel films tend to lack. Even though they're fun, like there's only a handful of Marvel films that really have like an emotional core. You have like Iron Man about personal responsibility, maybe Winter Soldier about like the dangers of basically how like the
Winter
world is
Soldier,
gray.
I would say definitely. Winter Soldier might be my personal favorite Marvel movie, and I will defend anything about that movie. I fucking love that movie.
But a lot of their films don't like. It's like I feel like except for maybe like a few films, they're pulling their punches. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because they're having so much fun, and that's fine. I'll say the other example of a movie that felt like it was about something was Civil War.
Yeah.
I'll definitely that one. Like when you see Tony Stark and Steve Rogers fighting, that scene, like I felt that in my soul. Like that's something that I want to see more from Marvel. And if DC can pull off what they just did, of course Marvel can pull off their weaknesses, pull off making their weaknesses better as well.
Right. So the question basically becomes, did they learn their lesson? Or are they just going to be like, we need slow motion action sequences and we need to do more historical films. No. Like that's not what made this film great. Although the setting was pretty interesting. What are you afraid of?
What I'm afraid of is that it's going to be like the lessons Ridley Scott learned from Prometheus to make Alien Covenant.
Please don't.
Not, the stupid characters need to be less stupid. Not, take out the plot holes. Instead, what he learned from that was put all the aliens in the movie because that's what people wanted. Who cares about the rest of it? Take away all of the kind of deep philosophical stuff that made Prometheus intriguing. And, we could make a whole episode on Alien Covenant, but that's what I'm afraid WB is going to do.
I got you. They're going to create like a Frankenstein monster.
Yes. I'm going back into cynicism that I was trying to get away from talking about Wonder Woman, but I'm pretty sure that's what's going to happen with Justice League, especially because Justice League has a different team. It's already pretty far along, and unless they try to pull a Suicide Squad where they change it halfway through and it ends up worse, I don't have that much faith.
Let's bring it back to Wonder Woman. Let's save that for the end of the episode where it's going, because I feel like there's a few other things I want to talk about that some people aren't necessarily bringing up. The chemistry. This is like the best superhero romance I think since like the 77 Superman, like the first Superman movie. Like I bought that relationship. They gave Patty Jenkins really gave time for those two characters to develop a relationship, and it made sense. Like it was neither one were kind of like the sidekick. They both had their things to do. Although I think the biggest comparison people draw between Captain America and this film might be the Steve characters, the two Steves, both played by Chris's. and how they crashed a plane or whatever, or blew it up.
Oh God, I didn't even consider that.
Yeah, but I mean, it's still completely different films. But I felt like Chris Pine. I mean, I just want to take a second. I mean, obviously, we haven't even talked about how great Gal Gadot was, or Gal Gadot. I don't know how to say her name, but anyways, I mean, she did the character so well. I mean, she
really did.
She really brought a lot of life to the character, a lot of charm to the character. And as we talked about, this is not a type of character, like if any point she winked at the camera or like did something like that was slightly sarcastic or slightly cynical, it'd break the illusion that this person's been living in, as an Amazonian and that they aren't accustomed to the world, or that, that there's some big joke on our character. Like, you have to play that character straight in terms of, she doesn't have, like when she saw the baby and he's like, they're not made of clay or something like that. Or the whole conversation about men and Amazonian women.
And they did it without making her boring. Like, she was able to relate and talk to these people in a sort of like naive, almost childlike, but still very intelligent and curious manner. Right. The way she relates to people, the way she, talks about one of the soldiers singing, like when he thinks he's not worth being with the rest of them and he's thinking about leaving. And she just, in the most, I never want to use the term adorable with Wonder Woman because she's too cool and I respect her too much, but it was almost adorable the way she's like just genuinely saying, but then who will sing for us?
Yeah.
It's just like,
yeah.
It just makes your heart feel happy. You know what I mean?
No,
this movie made my heart
exactly
feel happy.
It was definitely an uplifting film because it did something that I don't. Okay, so we talked about the tone, we talked about the characters, we've talked about how DC's superheroes are different from Marvel's, but I also feel like this film brought up something, and this is not something that's uncommon in films, but Marvel's never really touched this idea that like humanity is pretty fucked up. Like, we as a whole are pretty fucked up. And that whole, I loved, even though Ares was a super simplistic villain, the real villain to me in this film might be just like reality, essentially. Her coming out of her home environment and realizing just how fucked up the world is. And like, everybody's telling her, don't leave. You don't want to go in the outside world. You're not going to like it. And she's like, no, I can do it. I can change humanity. Humanity is good. It's like this struggle between believing, like, her core conflict could be, in my opinion, her belief that humanity is good, and then seeing the horror of humanity in World War I, and then trying to reconcile that with the belief that she held before she went out, into the world.
And the beautiful thing is that she can reconcile it. It's not easy. And that's what the entire movie is about. Her seeing the horrors of World War I, which was a war without a clear bad guy.
Yes,
a war that was just, in retrospect, I mean, it made sense back then for the people who were fighting it, but in retrospect, just makes no sense to us how you could cause this much carnage for something so arbitrary and silly to us by today's standards. And the whole movie is about her realizing that humanity isn't perfect, isn't always good, but that there is still good in humanity, and that it's worth fighting for.
Right. And that flashback sequence was fucking perfect. When it's like when the bomb goes off, she can't hear him, and then she like flashes back and like remembers what he was saying. You know what I'm saying? You remember that with Steve?
Yeah,
that was
do.
So well done. So even though people have kind of criticized Ares as being kind of one-dimensional, to me, he's not. He is the villain, but at the same time, he's not the antagonist problem. You know what I mean? He's just part of it.
He's more like a force of nature. He's like the impetus to things. But the thing that was so intriguing about him, the thing that even if he as a person and his personality wasn't very three-dimensional, what was so brilliant about his character design is that he wasn't what was causing all of this. He made very clear, I'm just here to prove humanity is evil. I didn't tell them to fight. I'm not brainwashing these people. I'm just putting ideas into their head on how to do this. Like, he's the reason, Dr. Poison, and yes, that is her nickname, Dr. Poison, she's one of the antagonists, was able to complete her formula for the gas because of him. She was already going to do that. She already wanted to do that.
He's giving them the tools.
He just gave her the final idea to put that formula together.
Right.
So the movie is capable of having its cake and eating it too, in that it says that, throughout the whole movie that things aren't that simple. There's not just one bad guy. There's not just one bad guy that's going to destroy everything. And if you defeat him, everything will be perfect and happy. But at the same time, it's still got to have its superhero villain. And I haven't seen a movie do that before.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And that's what I was saying is that I've yet to see a Marvel film where like these characters start to question whether they should be protecting the world or like, you know, like they have start to have core questions about the people they're saving. It's always like
they
maybe
sometimes
with Civil War,
say that
or,
in some
Winter Soldier, maybe.
They sometimes say, and if we're talking about both Marvel and DC, you do definitely hear that as like
Marvel.
throwaway dialogue or
But it's never been like a
exposition or, you know, the big important speech, but it hasn't really been explored.
No,
in a genuine way.
No, it hasn't. And I liked it. It's
always pretty vapid, you know?
Right. So I think we've kind of touched on the things that we really liked about the film. Also, the side characters were great. I'm just going to say that too. All the characters really were fun. Like the little team they had that went out and all of her character moments with those people, like the singing Scotsman. So the question becomes, we don't know where it's going to go from here, obviously, because we were ready to write off the whole extended universe. But if they learn, let's say, let's be optimistic about this. If they learn their lesson, and we know that Joss Whedon is doing some rewrites in the film because of that horrible tragedy with Zack Snyder's daughter, which that is just heavy shit.
Yeah.
Which it sucks. I mean, it really does. It's but apparently Joss Whedon was already involved in some of the rewrites before this happened, something along those lines. And Jeff Johns, I think, was placed as kind of like the Kevin Feige of the DC universe. I want to see the DC universe thrive. I want to have Marvel to have some real competition and for them to step up their game a little bit. Because Marvel right now, you know, they're hitting a certain bar. I think they can go further, especially with certain characters. Like I said, I feel like some of their movies that they pulled punches. I feel like Guardians didn't. And I think that's also because the creative committee had no involvement in that. Guardians of the Galaxy 2 was just as weird and wacky. Like it was just a Marvel movie to the best degree, in my opinion.
I mean, yeah. But I loved Guardians of the Galaxy too.
And it's nice that we've had two like superb movies come out from Marvel and DC, and they're completely different in tone and character, right? I'm not saying Marvel needs to be more like DC. I'm saying that Marvel I don't want them to rest on their laurels. I want them to really look at their problems that they still have, which is like villains. And really, I want to say that people have brought this up before, that there's not really been a ton of impact. Like, I feel like some of their character arcs reset every film, especially with Iron Man. You know what I mean? Like Iron Man 1, learning about personal responsibility. Then Iron Man 2, he's an asshole. Then he learns about personal responsibility. You know what I'm saying? I want to see some stakes build and something really happen. Like even with Civil War to a certain extent, even though there were stakes, even though there was like a schism, they do have that letter at the end, and you still kind of get the vague sense that they're still available, that the team is around in some form or another. You know what I mean?
Right. And it's interesting because it's a good problem to have with Marvel. It's what we're describing is a good problem to have, that your movies are so great, but you can do better. And we're used to you being great. We are used to Marvel movies being great.
Right.
And we're waiting for them to raise the bar even further. But before we go any further, let's talk about any minor stuff we didn't like about Wonder Woman, because I have really only two things that I didn't like about the movie. It didn't ruin it in the slightest, but I mean, what would this podcast be without us complaining about something?
Sure, go ahead.
So, my friend I was watching this with made a really good point that I didn't even consider because I was so wrapped up in the movie. If Ares killed all of the gods, how did Diana kill him so easily?
Oh, it was Zeus's daughter, wasn't it?
Yeah, but Ares killed not only Zeus, but
she had
literally
the power
every
of
one of the
love.
gods.
She had the power of love on her side.
Oh, right. I totally forgot about the power of love.
Power of love.
I'm sure
Harry
Zeus
Potter's
didn't
talked about
love.
this.
Yeah. If Harry Potter taught us anything, it's that the power of love can,
Also, did Zeus really love? I think he was just a horny bastard. I don't know if
I was
he
about
really
to say
loved.
Zeus was kind of an asshole, but I'm sure, some of the gods must have had the power of love. But seriously though,
Aphrodite.
like it is kind of silly.
I think they
when you think about
streamlined it. Like they could have done a whole pantheon, but they narrowed it down real quick. Like, I mean, I don't know if in the comics all the other gods appear. I'm not sure. I don't know enough about them, but I felt like that intro was basically just to say, well, there were gods, but now there's just one, so we don't have to bring them in at some point. We're just making this easy.
It still makes you wonder, like, how, like my headcanon is that he was still, he still hadn't totally recovered from his wounds after those thousands and thousands of years. But that should have been explained a bit, at least. Like, and again, I wasn't thinking about this at all in the movie. I was so wrapped up in it.
I would say
the other thing.
Go ahead.
Oh, what were you gonna say?
No, I'd just say that showdown was like not necessarily the highlight for me. Like, it was fun and it was fine, but it was like, to me, that was more about her just realizing, making that choice that, I'm with humanity. I'm going to give them a chance. Humans aren't all evil. And then it was just kind of like the necessary, like, oh, well, she's going to kick his ass, obviously. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And the second thing, which I did think about in the movie, was she totally should have killed Dr. Poison. Like,
okay. Yeah.
I understand, like, that scene in a vacuum was perfect. Like, if you just showed me that scene and I didn't see the rest of Wonder Woman, I would have been like, yeah, that's awesome, of course. Because what we're talking about is the scene towards the end of the movie where Ares is pointing at Dr. Poison, who is trying to get away from all the chaos, and it's like, see, she's the perfect example of why all humans are terrible and evil and ugly and scum. You should kill her right now. She poisoned so many people. She gassed villages. She's a despicable, disgusting person. And Diana is like, no, I'm not going to do it because I have faith in people. But this takes place in a movie where she just got done killing dozens upon dozens of German soldiers. And I'm not holding that against her at all. I'm just thinking, if you're willing to kill soldiers who are doing their job and probably have, wives, children, friends back home, hopes, dreams, but you're not willing to kill the monster in human form who is creating poison to gas entire villages and cities and kill little babies and women and children, then something's wrong with that picture.
I get what you're saying. There's a disconnect for sure. And that is a valid point to bring up for sure. I guess, it didn't really bother me, but I completely agree with you that it is very inconsistent. Her behavior is inconsistent. I think it didn't
take away from the movie for me. It was just something that I noticed. Like,
it felt a little bit like a contrivance, like it was just there for the plot point to sell the plot point. When in reality, you're like, wait, did she just kill all those people? Like, she's already decided to kill some people. Like, yeah, I got you.
Yeah.
I already kind of touched on it. Like the end of the film to me is not necessarily the strongest part. I liked it. I liked the film all the way through. Don't get me wrong. But I think like the first, I feel like, to me, I felt more excited by the trench run than I did necessarily the end.
Oh, hell yeah.
That trench run was pretty freaking awesome. And that was kind of like the crystallization of the character for me. So I felt like it peaked a little bit there, and then it didn't quite reach that peak at the end. But it was still a great movie all the way through. And the final thing I want to say, and we're going to get in trouble now because we're going to be talking about them feminist tones.
Oh boy.
Yeah. No, I just wanted to say that I thought all the feminist parts, if you want to call it that, because it's a movie about a woman that's a Wonder Woman and is a superhero, and she's empowered, she's smart, she's capable, and she's Gal Gadot, and obviously she's hot. But that's not the defining feature, obviously. All the scenes where she first got to London, and there was a lot of like this cultural disconnect of, no, you're not supposed to wear this outfit, and no, you're not supposed to talk. And it was used for humor, but at the same time, the humor was, we're seeing this incredibly capable woman who's intelligent and learns really quickly, and compare, like, we're seeing how ridiculous society's norms were at that point. You know what I mean? That's where the humor comes in.
Right.
And it didn't feel to me like they were beating you over the head with it, unlike that horrible fucking Transformers trailer. Do you remember that? The new Transformers trailer where it's like, I'm a girl, and then it's like montage of her running and Transformers blowing up, and I punch like a girl, and then more montage, and I'm just like, oh my God, dude. Not that I have a problem with the idea of like good, strong female characters, just how like on the nose it is and how like in your face it is. They can handle this with some real tact and some
it can feel contrived in other movies. And if I haven't seen that trailer, but it's kind of rich hearing that coming from a Michael Bay film.
Exactly. I was like, what the fuck was Megan Fox doing for the first 3 films? I'm sorry.
I could go on a whole rant about that. I was like, now asshole.
Michael Bay is like a feminist director, please.
He's not, though. And that's why it's so funny.
I know, but, disingenuous.
I totally agree with you in Wonder Woman. And like, if that bothers you, like, it's one thing if what Lark just explained in a Transformers movie bothers you. I mean, I'm sure that would bother a lot of women too, just not because it's feminist, but because it's stupid. But if the stuff in Wonder Woman bothers you, then I would say it says more about you than the movie.
Oh, absolutely.
Because and you just have to get used to not every single thing in the universe speaking directly to you as a whatever you are or identify as. And that's how a lot of people feel all the time, and they deal with it just fine.
Yeah.
Because, like, I mean, in those scenes, like, I mean, I was going along with the laughs. I was doing exactly what you were doing, like, laughing at the fact that society was, you know, so dumb back then. But at the same time, I'm sure that that scene wasn't made for me. It wasn't made for a man, and that's fine. That's totally fine. Not every single second of every single thing in existence has to cater specifically to my penis. I'm cool with I'm cool with that.
We get a quote on that.
Yeah, you can have like that in quotes and fancy quotes and just have my name scrawled beneath and just send that to my mother specifically.
But yeah, I guess that's all I really wanted to say was it fit well in the film. I didn't feel like it was necessarily the focal point, but it was definitely brought up in a very not tactful, but in a good way. It was done well. That's all you can say. So, and final thoughts.
I was going to say, to your point, like, how else would you do a movie about a woman in World War I?
You couldn't. You had to do
fight
it that way
without, like, that would just be dumb.
You had to address it. You definitely had to address it. So yeah, go see Wonder Woman if you haven't. And if you haven't, I'm sorry, because we probably spoiled a ton of the movie for you. And if you have, what are your thoughts? Do you agree with us? Do you disagree? Were you as impressed with Gal Gadot as we were?
Do you think that we are radical feminazis or disgusting, terrible men who should be burned at the stake? Let us know.
Yeah.
Because there's no in between.
No.
There's no in between, Lark.
Definitely not.
Pick a side.
All right. I think that wraps it up.
See ya.